that we've been working a lot lately at Freedom Project with Catholic schools. And one of the things that's so shocking to me is how many Catholic schools have signed on to this without having to.
Yeah.
It's completely voluntary for the private schools. And there's this weird notion among Catholic education administrators that we can somehow have Common Core, but this isn't going to pull us closer to the federal government.
Sure.
A federal government that, by the way, has been obviously hostile to Christianity in general and Roman Catholicism in particular. Think of the Health and Human Services mandate. One of the things that's most alarming about it, and here's one of those interest groups that is an example. There's a video of a Roman Catholic nun talking about why her Catholic school district was adopting Common Core. And she made the argument that all the public schools are going over to this.
Right.
And if we don't go over to this, we're going to be left out in the cold. Because what's happening, she admitted this, what's happening is all the textbook publishers have gone completely Common Core. So as a Roman Catholic school, her response was, unless we get on board doing with what the public schools do,
We'll have no textbooks.
we're not no textbooks. Rather than say, you know what, we're already performing at a much higher rate than the public schools.
Yeah.
We're going to have our own schools and have our own textbooks and watch what would happen as this Common Core curriculum absolutely sinks, right? Like every other government standard sinks. The Catholic schools will be flooded with all sorts of new kids who actually want to learn something. But ironically, the Catholic schools are completely
Like they have been for decades.
completely selling out to Common Core. In other words, they're cutting their own throats. By joining the consortiums that are voluntarily using Common Core, they are furthering the process of the elimination of any textbook that's not Common Core.
Right. Well, that's the problem. I mean, the more that you, the more that you join up with all the people who are doing things that take away your freedoms, the faster, of course, your freedoms are going to be taken away. Well, also, you're just thinking, you know, private schools offer an alternative to public schools. So if a parent is already annoyed with the public schools, what they're doing, they're going to look for something different. So if you're just going to do the same thing as a public school, you might as well be one.
You know, the funny thing is when we talk to moms and dads, Catholic school moms and dads, or private school moms and dads, they get it.
Yeah.
When we talk to, in the case of the Catholic schools, that when we've been able to get in and see bishops and people who are above the education administration, they seem to get it.
Yeah.
It's the educational administrators, and this is par for the course, because the same people who run Catholic schools' education programs are the same people teaching in the public schools and the same people putting the curriculum together.
Well, because the only way to get a certification or a piece of paper saying that you're an education expert is to go through the monopoly, the teacher certification monopoly, the higher education, monopoly. The only, that is completely clamped down, by folks who think that education doesn't mean learning things. It means, being a social justice person. It means, advocating for change in your community, and so on and so forth. So when you have all of the teachers from, private, public, so on and so forth, being forced to all funnel through one way of training teachers and a really politicized and rotten higher education system, then you basically have the same bad ideas spreading everywhere. So that's the problem with the Common Core test, because then they make all the schools funnel in the same direction, not only just with their teacher training, but also with their curriculum.
Joy makes a great point. As somebody whose job is at the university level to help train future education majors, the entire curriculum is activist. It's not about education anymore. It's what you said at the beginning of your little comment there was fantastic, because it's 100% activism. And you see this, what's going to happen to the Catholic schools too, is this, or the private schools, this odd notion that you can somehow get in bed with government, and yet you'll be able to keep them at arm's length. We've seen historically what a losing proposition that is. Will you talk a little bit, though, about specifically, a little bit more about data mining, because this is the most shocking thing when we talk to families. Most families have no idea about this.
Sure.
And so give us a last word here about what you see the long-term dangers of data mining.
Well, we'll start with the fact that in 2012, the federal government basically rewrote federal privacy law called FERPA, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, to say that it or any government entity or any private entity they designate, individual or business, they're allowed to share any information they have about your child without your knowledge or consent. So that's the way that the law is. So people think, oh, there's privacy laws. The privacy laws don't mean anything. And so what this means is that the more that people are able to get really highly personal information about you, the more sorts of, the real goal is social engineering. I don't like to use explosive sorts of things like that, but this is very obvious. The goal is to create a workforce that responds to the needs of the 21st century as determined by the central planners. And so the hope, this is literally, people say this, the idea is that the more data we can get on people, the more we can change people. So the idea is to basically get a blueprint. So for example, I just read this the other day, this wild thing. The Department of Defense put out a proposal requesting a contractor to build a portable EEG machine, and they envisioned that this would be used in classrooms to hook up every child with a brain scanner. That's what it is. It's a brain scanner to be feeding all of this data into a massive database. We know that the federal government can monitor and track, all to help improve education. That's always what happens when people want more data about your personal life. They want to improve things for you, but what they want to do is improve it in the way they want and take the power away from you to control things and make decisions about your own life with your own information and your own priorities.
Joy, if it walks like socialism, talks like socialism, and oppresses like socialism, the odds are pretty good at socialism. Well, these are some horrifying things, and the more you delve into Common Core, the more shocked you're going to be. Joy, it's a pleasure having you here today, and if you want more information, please go to thenewamerican.com.